We're now a little over a week into the full release of Tactics Ogre Reborn. I've been pumping out guides and streams like a madman because there's just so much content to cover, including questions and requests from y'all in the community. But today, I wanted to take a step back and give y'all 7 more tips, this time for the mid-game. Let's begin. Hello everyone, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. We're quickly moving towards 4,000 subscribers here on this channel, and as we get closer, I find myself getting more and more confident that we might just hit the big 5K by the end of the year. If we do, I'm throwing a party with a big old 24-hour live stream, or maybe 2 12-hour live streams. That was a suggestion I got from a commenter. We'll figure it out. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, especially if you find my content fun or informative. And to everyone who already has subbed, thank you so much. This has been an awesome week and a half, seriously. Now to start us off, let's talk about some of the new classes you can find in the mid-game. I've gotten a number of questions about when and where to get certain classes such as Swordmasters, Dragoons, and Ninjas. And while there are opportunities to recruit them in story battles, it will often be difficult to do so when contending with powerful bosses, or escort quests, or guest units who just insist on killing your target right before you can recruit them. If these are issues that you've been encountering, I suggest delving once again into the Farampa Wildwood. Delve down either the left or the right paths, and as you hit your 3rd or 4th, maybe 5th map, you'll start to see some of these rarer classes. Recruit them, or kill them, in hopes they drop their class marks, and you'll be upgrading to special classes in no time. Tip number 2 is pay attention to RT when upgrading gear. The overhaul to crafting in Tactics Ogre Reborn has been a gift, streamlining the process of acquiring, upgrading, and specializing gear sets for your army. However, something that's important to pay attention to is the increase in weight, and as a consequence, RT, that crafted gear can cause. In my experience, crafted gear will often add +1 to your RT, and over 7 pieces of gear, that can add up to a lot. Notably, some gear does not add to your RT, such as my Dragoon Orion here, his Balder armor +1 and Balder gauntlets +1. But take note that his helm, leggings, and +1 spear all do. So, if you have a character who you're working to keep low on RT, or at the very least don't want it to scale any higher, consider the increased weight of crafted gear and maybe try to counteract it with other, lighter, possibly uncrafted choices. Number 3, forge multiple different weapons for bonus effects. I've spoken in other videos about the importance of choosing the right weapon for the right situation, but this tip goes further than that. Much further. You see, until recently, I didn't truly understand just what the crafting system is capable of and what it's bringing to the table with the new changes to it in Reborn. When you upgrade your weapons, you'll often find that additional status effects and debuffs have been applied to them beyond your parries and counterattacks and things like that you're probably used to looking for on your weapons at this point. The most popular callout has been weapons with the Breached debuff, giving you a chance to nullify a huge chunk of a target's armor for future attacks just with your basic attack command. This is one that I've been seeing a lot in the community at large. I've been seeing a lot of people talking about it in comments on my guides and videos and streams. It's very, very powerful. There are also options such as Silence, like I have on a +1 Dirk, which has been great for neutralizing certain spellcasters, or False Strike on +1 Rapiers, as well as many other options. As such, I recommend keeping a complement of a few different forged weapons on hand for certain characters. So long as they match that character's chosen weapon type, like they're all one-handed swords or spears or whatever, you get the point, you'll have the ability to swap out between weapons that best suit the needs of a given battle. Given the relatively low cost of crafting upgraded weapons, this is a cheap and easy way to gain the upper hand on the battlefield. Now, does that mean that sometimes you may be taking a hit on your damage in order to inflict those status effects? Possibly. Possibly. But it does seem, as I've been getting more weapons and upgrading them, effects such as Breached are fairly commonly occurring. So it's not like you're going to be stuck with a low-end early game weapon for all time just so that you can inflict Breached on things. There will be newer, more powerful options that come along that do that. So keep an eye out for these status effects and debuffs. They are very powerful to have on your weapons. Number 4, Forge Pants for extra movement and Gloves for extra jump. Seeing as how we're already on the topic of crafting and forging, I cannot stress how important this next one is. Always keep your crafted gloves and leg wear on your party. Gloves will grant you a 1 space increase to your jump height, and even more importantly, leg wear grants +1 move range across the board. These are obviously insanely strong passive bonuses on top of the defensive bonuses that you get for having crafted armor. Of course, as we talked about, crafted gear does increase RT costs, or often does at the very least, but in the grand scheme of things, it is a pretty small price to pay for increased battlefield mobility. And as we discussed before, you can always counteract that increase in RT by maybe choosing crafted gear that doesn't increase RT, or choosing uncrafted gear. Depending on the gear that is in question, what stats you get from it, you may even consider not upgrading to new gear that you can't craft just yet, just to keep these mobility bonuses. It's hugely beneficial, like massively. Number 5, use the Lobber skill and debuff items to nerf tough targets. Moving on from crafting concerns, let's discuss an anti-boss strategy that will make your life infinitely easier as bosses scale higher and higher from Chapter 3 onwards. You see, many bosses come with highly increased resistance to status effects like stunned and sleep if they're not outright immune to them. But what they don't typically have is a resistance to debuffs. As such, consider adding a unit with the Lobber skill, such as a Beast Tamer, to your team. Equip them with a Dynast King's Mead and a Brand of the Sacrifice to inflict Breached and Weakened respectively, and you'll have a ranged, MP-free option to debuff pretty much any target. As you get to the mid-game and bosses start coming fully stacked with a complement of buff cards on top of their already inflated boss stats, this unit will quickly become a must-have addition to your team, who will, by the virtue of debuffing the enemy, keep your team up for longer. It's basically free HP and free healing, when you think about it. Number 6, compare the stats of unique and generic units. As you progress through the game, you'll start acquiring unique characters as deployable units. For me, in Chapter 2 Chaos, this entailed getting an Archer, a Valkyrie, a Knight, and a Wizard. When you compare these characters to my generic alternatives, it's easy to see that these unique units are better in many ways. Chief among these differences is lower RT scores for these unique units, meaning that they will move faster, take their turns more often, and can afford to wear heavier gear than some of your generic units. And after all, moving faster is often the key to victory. So it's in your best interest to work these speedy characters into your army. Now, does that mean you need to or should replace your generics as soon as you get a unique character of the same class? No, I don't think so. I've talked before about the importance of a large, diverse army so you can stay flexible and adjust to different combat scenarios on the fly without having to go and grind up something new to accommodate that situation. And while these unique characters are strong, they are not one-person armies that will circumvent those needs. They're just more tools in your kit. So don't go crazy. Don't think it's time to ditch your units that have carried you through the first couple chapters of the game. Hold on to them. They will still have their times to be useful, but definitely consider using these uniques. And number 7, be conservative with mana herbs. My final tip for this video is to not just use your mana herbs with reckless abandon. And I know, I've suggested in the past to not hoard your items. Don't fall into the JRPG trap of ending the game with 99 of every item. But that's because most items can be purchased in large quantities. It's not the case with mana herbs. Now, this might wind up being more of a tip for veteran players like myself, but that's because we are used to Let Us Cling Together, where you could buy mana herbs alongside healing herbs at any shop. But you can't do that now. Now, you can only find mana herbs as a random drop and potentially as hidden treasure on certain map tiles. If there are other places that you can get mana herbs from, I have not yet acquired it, and I've not seen anyone talking about it yet, so be careful with your supply. Given the importance of mana for using special skills, casting spells, and of course using finishing moves, this places mana herbs at a very high premium with a very small supply. So I recommend you be smart about your spellcasting and skill usage, and rely on skills like Meditate to do the heavy lifting for your MP recovery needs. Now, that said, don't get too invested in hoarding. Don't be afraid to use valuable items such as these mana herbs in high pressure situations. For example, in a highly challenging boss encounter about midway through Chapter 3 Chaos, I used a few mana herbs to great effect to get my party charged up for some devastating AoE attacks. This allowed me to get some of the enemy grunts out of the way and make the battlefield a little less hectic for when the boss aggroed and began their approach. It was a use well worth it, and it's the kind of time that you are saving these resources for. So don't underestimate the power of rare items and don't be afraid to use them. Just keep them for the right situation. And those are my first 7 tips for how to approach the mid-game of Tactics Ogre Reborn. There is still a lot of game to handle here, and I already have some more ideas for more tips videos, as well as other video topics like class guides, or how to approach boss encounters, a pincer attack breakdown, and more, so keep it here. If you have other suggestions for topics or questions that need answering, let me know, and I'll see what I can do. I hope you found this video useful, and thanks for all the continued support, guys. The comments especially have been filled with so much positivity and kindness, so thank you to those commenters in particular. Y'all are seriously the best. Again, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.